All right, it is 8:01 p.m. ET. So good evening to you on the East Coast of the United States. Good day, good morning, wherever else you are, and welcome to our Thursday talk for Black Birders Week 2022. I hope you've been enjoying it. It's been a crazy few months of planning, and it's kind of weird to think that it's already more than halfway over, but I guess time really flies when you're having fun. I cracked myself. My name is Ade Ben Salahuddin, and I am proud to be a co-organizer for this year's events, particularly to moderate tonight's presentation by our guest speaker, Jason George. I won't read his full bio, since you'll be hearing a lot from him momentarily, but as just a little setup, Jason is a dyslexic BIPOC wildlife photographer, presenter, and writer who recently relocated to the rural settings of Wasaga Beach in Canada to get closer to nature when he retired from teaching full-time to chase his passion of wildlife. He loves to see wild animals in their natural habitat and state, and so he travels around Canada, so far only missing Newfoundland and Nunavut, and around the world, sans Antarctica. He does all this to photograph animals in ways as ethically and humanely as possible. Jason was one of the first people I actually remember reaching out to us when we first announced our themes for this year. And so, as soon as I saw his story, which jived so well with today's theme of flying the coop, which is all about career changes and following your passions into nature, I thought, well, we need to have this man speak. So I'm excited for you all to get to hear from him. One more thing before I hand it off to Jason, though. I want to quickly thank our sponsors for this event. So, particularly the Parrott University and the National Audubon Society for both sponsoring and hosting this particular event, among many of the others that we had this week. I also want to give a special thanks to the behind the scenes folks, Dara Wilson and Preeti Desai, who are running tech support right now, and will be helping me bring your questions to Jason when we get to the Q&A portion of the talk. I also want to give a thanks to one of our behind the scenes members, Ayana Brown, for organizing these giveaways that have been going on throughout the week, including the complimentary photos that you in attendance will be getting as a thank you for registering and attending this presentation. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Jason George, wildlife photographer extraordinaire.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for the introduction. I'm really excited for this opportunity. Just let me get my screen set up and then we can hopefully have a fun little show and get you inside my head and explain my experiences. So hopefully you're seeing a wolf right now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So I'm good to go and we can start this off. So welcome to the journey of a dyslexic wildlife photographer. I was a teacher recently and I retired from it. So I'm going to explain what's going to happen. But before we actually do that, think about what your favorite animal is, even your favorite bird, and I am going to try to show you your favorite bird or maybe even your favorite animal. We'll do a little get to know me, and then we'll talk about my learning disabilities and my teaching, and then I'll talk about this new adventure that's happening, and we'll end it with the safari hunt, which is an eye training activity, just to sort of see what it's like to actually be a wildlife photographer and what you're sort of looking for. And then we'll end it all with a Q&A. If you have any questions at any point, please feel free to ask them. My life's an open book. If you want to know, ask the question, I'll answer it. But thank you everybody for joining this. Let's go. So being a wildlife photographer, I actually subject my friends to some of the silliness. And I recently was lent or loaned a snowy owl, and I brought it to a boys' weekend for my buddies to actually get to see. And they actually appreciated it, and they know that I'm a little bit silly. But I also will host workshops where it's not just for people with super expensive cameras. It's for people who just want to enjoy wildlife. And then there's this one girl I know named Chloe. And if you want to know more about this story, there's a bunch of links on my YouTube channel, and I will share them in the chat at the end. But Chloe has a stand-up wheelchair, and I did this wildlife presentation for her at her place because we just had this awesome connection when we met, and she loves animals. We did this wildlife tour, and we ended up seeing 7 snowy owls and 1 bald eagle. Her favorite animal as a kid was a owl. And she had this awesome hat. And I asked Mom if I could have one, sort of joking around, but serious. And I was like, only if it's purple. A few months later, I was given it. It's awesome. But Chloe and my relationship has grown since then. And we recently had, well, I recently had this idea where I actually did this fundraiser for her so that she could get this feeding arm. The feeding arm cost $7,800. But my community actually helped raise money. And within 36 hours, we had raised $8,100. This story is so sweet, it actually made 2 different newspapers, which is, to me, pretty amazing that a small little community that I have could actually help and wanted to help this girl get this feeding arm. I do lead tours to try to show people animals because I have this natural affinity of, or ability, I guess, of getting these or seeing these cool moments. So I've taken some famous or amazing photographers in my mind, like Anne, to see sandhill cranes. I've also taken people with special needs. I've taken kids. One kid actually took the day off school to spend it with me. We saw 8 snowy owls that day. If you look at the one with the purple face, you'll see a snowy owl sitting on the light post. Well, funny story about this is there was a piece of garbage that blew from our car as we were driving away. And as I ran to pick it up, boom, splat, something hit me on the shoulder. It was pretty heavy and smelly. And then I smelt it and looked, and I was like, oh my goodness, the owl just pooped on me. It's not lucky. I went to the corner store, bought a lottery ticket. I did not win. Getting pooped on by an owl is not lucky. Maybe another bird it's lucky, but definitely not an owl. But back to that boy that I took, or that took the day off school. 2 years later, his mom actually writes a note to me saying how much I've actually changed their life just through this owl experience that they had and teaching them how to enjoy wildlife. Man, that's such a cool thing to have an impact on someone else. Being the person I am, I do often get some random calls or messages. This one time I got a call about this sandhill crane. It was from the lady, Anne, actually, that I had taken to see sandhill cranes. Someone was feeding the sandhill crane and it was winter time and it wasn't flying away with its family. So they called me and I went over and I put it in a box. Do you know what a sandhill crane is? Because I didn't until I saw a sandhill crane recently. And they're absolutely beautiful birds. 3 feet tall, razor sharp, foot long beak, absolutely stunning. Well, we put it in this box and then we went to release it and it was awesome. It flew out of the box, hit me in the face. Amazing. The day was done. We were excited and it was running around the field. There were 1,000+ sandhill cranes in the field that day. Unfortunately, the human had imprinted itself on the sandhill crane. And instead of flying to its family and friends, it actually was now flying towards us and other vehicles. So now we realized what we had to do. We spent a few hours chasing it, and eventually I dove and I caught it. Oh man, what an amazing experience. Unfortunately, we had to take it to a sanctuary. There's more about this sanctuary, speaking of wildlife, on my YouTube channel if you want to know. And he went into quarantine, and then he now lives the best life he's possible. It's a shame that this lady stepped in and was bragging about how this sandhill crane was picking her hair and dancing with her at parties. That's not the place for wild birds. Well, so while we're talking about garages, let's talk about the garage I'm in right now. This is my garage, and I built it into this space where I can store my creepy or weird stuff. There's skulls, bones, there's even a dinosaur footprint. Unfortunately, I'm in Wasaga Beach, Ontario, so I think most of you might be in the United States, so it might be a little bit of a trek. But if you're in the area, stop by. I'll show you something cool, I promise. Well, if you haven't picked up now, I'm a little bit silly. So if we look at this picture here, you can actually see that I'm photobombing this girl's picture. And I waited until they had actually taken the picture that they were trying to take. But what you might not notice in this picture, and we've actually become friends since this picture, is there's actually a moose. I showed them my picture and they're like, what? That's the moose that we're looking at? This is what happens when you have a good camera opposed to just an average camera or a cell phone, right? You can get a little bit closer and do it safely. This comes into advantage when you're taking pictures of wildlife. So in life, sometimes I feel that I make wrong turns or I'm doing the wrong thing. There was this example where I was driving with my girlfriend at the time, Shelly, and we were driving and all of a sudden we were going the wrong way. And instead of freaking out, we had a short little discussion. It was like, well, we could go this way. Well, mine says this way. And it was like, well, make a decision. Well, they're both taking us. She ended up deciding to take my route, which honestly ended up being the best thing because all of a sudden this baby fox appeared out of nowhere. If you want to know more about this fox family, it's the SJ Fox family on my YouTube channel. But, oh man, it was such a cool experience. And I went back a couple times and it was amazing. They just did their thing and there were baby foxes, right? Foxes are cute and cool, but baby foxes, they're awesome. And it wasn't just one baby kid. It was actually 5 of them. Oh, first time I've ever found my own fox den. And this is an awesome experience. I went back this year and I found them again. Oh, you ever found foxes? Well, because I do such silly things, sometimes my friends talk about me. Sometimes my friends actually make podcasts about me.
Who is or was your most interesting friend? We all know this guy, Jay George.
He's an interesting guy.
Interesting fellow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff.
Yes.
A lot of weird stuff
Yeah.
with his life. Like he posed for the cover of Men's Magazine randomly.
That's true.
He went to the running of the Bulls and saw a guy get obliterated and have video of that.
He used to play hockey with us, and he would cut the top out of his helmet and let his hair poke through the top hands. It's fantastic.
Now he's a photographer, I think, because I don't know when he's had the time to go on all these adventures. I think he rips off pictures off the internet and just puts the logo on it. But
If he does, he's done a great job with it.
Because somehow, no, he has the time because somehow he's a private school teacher.
Yeah, I know, right?
With no teaching degree.
Yeah.
that top question.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Which is the fastest runner?
So those guys were actually morning show hosts that actually have won multiple best morning show. And it's pretty cool that they were talking about me. People say they're making fun of me, but most of the things that they're saying are true, except for the teaching degree. I do have my teaching degree, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Wildlife photography and bird photography is all about timing. Timing can make a good picture great. It can also make it not great. But let's focus on the positives. So timing makes a great picture awesome, right? You can always make a picture better if you get the right timing or the right settings, right? This is a frog with its mouth open. I've only ever seen this happen twice. It's pretty cool. It's also about understanding timing and noticing things. There's this one time I was in Europe and I noticed these 4 geese walk across a field. They started honking in this cat's face and then they walked away. I started commenting to people and people were like, what are you talking about? If I hadn't taken this picture, I would not have had any kind of proof about this. And to be honest, it is really cool that these geese started honking in his face. The cat did nothing, and then they just went on their way. Timing also comes into play when I was in Thailand and I saw this tiger running around. Unfortunately, I don't speak Thai, and the Thai that I was talking to didn't speak English or understand me. So I crouched down and I took this picture. And because of my observant eye, I was able to save this tiger. Also, it's about trying to put yourself in the right location. So I was in Africa and I put myself in a hot air balloon. I'm afraid of heights. And I put myself in a hot air balloon, and from 2,000 feet, we spotted this leopard. We floated down and we ended up seeing it. I think it's a her, but we're not sure because we didn't see any babies or anything like that. Well, since we're talking about cats, let's look at some other cats in Africa. Here are the lion. Maybe you like a little bit of a taller animal, a giraffe. Maybe you're into the heavier ones. The elephants? When I was a kid, my favorite animal was the cheetah. And we were pretty lucky. We got to see a cheetah. Actually, we got to see two. And to be honest, if I was ever to see a cheetah, the one thing I would want to see it do is run. And this was a teaching experience. Mom, let the baby go off and hunt. Depending on who you're cheering for, the Thompson gazelle zigged when it should have zagged. And well, that's a story for another day. I'm not going to tell you, because let's just try to keep this one positive. Wait, maybe I'm going a little bit fast for you. Should I slow it down? I hope you got that joke, because this is a sloth that I'm showing you. It's actually not a sloth. If you look closely, you'll actually see a baby sloth. Oh, baby sloths are so cute. This to me makes me feel of a hug. It's something that I really love, hugs. It's one of the things I've really missed over the last 2 years. Oh, so when people talk about my photography, there's a photo that they tend to talk about. It's this wild pony from Dartmoor, England. Oh, the way that its hair flows in the air, it's awesome. But recently, there's this other photo that I've taken, the moose in the mist. I shared it in this group, and 12,000 people liked it out of like 21,000 or 21,000, which to me, that's pretty cool. Those likes don't put food in my belly, but it's pretty cool that people are starting to like my photos and even share them. Oh, well, this isn't actually my favorite moose picture. My favorite moose picture is when I actually took my mom for Mother's Day up to Algonquin Park. And I took this picture and I call it Meese. It's a mom with 2 yearlings. Wow, that's so rare. My mom's response to seeing this amazing moment was, oh, I wish I would have seen them crossing the road. Man, Mom, this is like such a cool experience. You know what? We ended up seeing one cross the road. She was happy. After a little bit of time, she understood how cool and rare this moment was. This one was my favorite picture. And then I saw this moment. The kiss. A moose kissing its baby. Oh, what a great experience. But many of us don't have moose around us. So we maybe talk about an animal that's some of you actually really like. Maybe some of you actually might have been a little bit shy to say was your favorite animal. There has to be at least one of you that was thinking this animal. Yeah, it's not a fictitious animal. It's real. Look, here's a unicorn. Look, here's another one. Have you ever seen a unicorn? Absolutely beautiful creatures. Yeah, they look just like deer, but instead of having 2 antlers, they have 1. Because animals or deer will actually drop their antlers in the wintertime, and they provide food for other animals. It also means that they eat less food. Oh, who knew that antlers were so important to the whole system of animals eating? Antlers also do serve another purpose. This is the biggest rack I've ever seen. This deer, oh, I watched it for 45 minutes. It had these 2 female deer walking around with it, and you knew something was up. And he kept sniffing and licking. Every time I grabbed my camera, he'd stop sniffing and licking. I knew something was up though. And I was with my friend and 45 minutes passed and nothing happened. So we go and we walk away and I always believe in taking that last photo, right? So as I was walking away, I look back and I take this picture and I'm like, oh, wait, he just winked at me. Oh, and I turn around and I slap my buddy, and I'm like, it's on. He's like, what do you mean it's on? I'm like, it's on. And I turn around and I take this picture. Oh, I call this one making bucks. Well, we've sort of climbed up through the food chain, and we can't finish the food chain off without talking about a wolf. This is the Algonquin wolf. A lot of my friends make fun of me because I always take a selfie and I stick my tongue out. But it's mostly because I take that picture because I have a lot of animal pictures where they're sticking their tongue out at me. Don't worry, this one wasn't trying to eat me. But enough about other animals. Let's maybe start focusing on birds because there's a lot of birders here. And I'll be honest, I'm not a birder. I appreciate birds, but I don't understand and know enough about, oh, there's this many different types of seagulls. To me, for the most part, I just call them all seagulls. I know that there's multiple types of them. And to understand the warblers, oh man, there's so much to understand about birds. I'm just a beginner birder. And I'm always willing to learn more. Oh, sorry, I forgot there was a bear picture. My bad. So I've become a little bit more of a birder in my town of Wasaga Beach. We have this bird that's called a plover. You can see it here if you look closely. Well, actually, if you look really closely, you'll actually not only see a mom, you'll actually notice that there's a couple babies. These babies are 3 days old. Oh, they're like the size of a golf ball. Like they're so tiny. Seagulls eat them. Oh. Do you have plovers where you're close to? They will actually nest in Wasaga Beach and then they fly down to Florida and other places in the United States. They're pretty cool. My favorite bird though to photograph is the owl. This is the owl that I like to call this owl that it lives in the penthouse suite, because this tree is just absolutely stunning. And oh wait, can you actually see the owl? No, look closely. Here, I'll zoom in on it. Yeah, right inside that hole, you'll actually notice there is a eastern screech owl. What owls do you have in your neighborhood? Some of the owls that I've been fortunate enough to see, I've seen the boreal owl. This one lives up in the boreal forest, hence the name boreal owl. I've also seen the barred owl. The barred owl I've actually hung out and I've spent time directly underneath this one. This is one of the larger and the more common because you can see it all throughout the year in Canada, or at least where I live. My favorite owl is probably the saw-whet owl. I've only ever seen 2 of them in the wild. I call this photo the wink. But here's a question for you. I went to a sanctuary where the sandhill crane was, speaking of wildlife, and I saw another saw-whet owl. And it did the same thing. It winked. Well, I guess it's blinking because both eyes are shut because it had been injured and it's being taken care of in the sanctuary. But they're both winking the same eye. Is this something that, does this mean something to a saw-whet owl? Honestly, I have no clue. But I think it's so cool that they both wink the same eye. Well, this is a northern hawk owl. It's the only owl I've ever seen catch its prey. The cool thing about the northern hawk owl is it'll actually plant its food in different spots and it'll come back in the wintertime and sit on it and warm it up so that it can eat. It hunts while it can catch and stores it for the wintertime when it's harder to catch food. And we can't end it off without talking about owlets. I've unfortunately only ever seen them once and at a great distance, but they're so cute. These ones actually kind of look like beehives up in the tree. Well, let's now turn the focus of this talk to my journey with my learning disabilities. I've always really enjoyed nature and that hands-on and that touchy-feely stuff. That's really where I was. That's what I excelled in. Books, didn't really enjoy them. Honestly, as a kid, I struggled. I didn't say my first word until I was 4. School was tough. I hated reading. Honestly, the worst thing for me was reading out loud, because then I had to try to figure out what the word was, what it was supposed to sound like. Then I had to say it, and I normally made a mistake, and then I had to figure out the next word. So as a teacher, I never made someone read out loud. I'd always ask for a volunteer, because there's always somebody who wants to read. And if no one wants to read, well, we'd figure out some other solution. I was fortunate enough that my parents sent me to a private school. That meant that I had smaller classrooms, and a lot of my teachers helped me, or at least gave a little bit of extra effort. And it was awesome. Yes, I did get laughed at because I did stumble, and you know what? Kids laugh at people. I didn't feel bad because they were laughing, but I was definitely aware. I often got in trouble because I talked too much. Sometimes I'd get off topic, but you know what? I was really working hard most of the time. Maybe that didn't seem that way to my parents or everybody at my house, but it probably caused some fights at home. And you know what? It is what it is. And they maybe didn't see it. They just saw that I was in the principal's office a lot. I knew so much about my secretaries at any school that I went to, because that's probably who I spent most of my time with. Oh. But I do thank the teachers, though, that went that extra mile, and they pushed me where I needed to be pushed, and they saw that I was struggling, and they would reward my efforts. It was awesome. I always remembered that, and I tried to do that when I was a teacher. And I was starting to struggle, and I needed a change. I was not really happy living at home and going to school where I was. It wasn't what I wanted. So I ended up talking to my parents, and I was able to find a hockey scholarship. And I went to a new school for grade 12 and part of 13. Yep, I actually got expelled from school 6 weeks into the school year. But I went back to my old school and I got into uni. Oh, someone who didn't say their first word until they were 4 graduates high school and gets into university. It was a great day. And while I was at my graduation ceremony, I was actually offered a job teaching when I came back. Or sorry, once I graduated teachers college. Oh, it was not a guaranteed full-time job, but it was a supply job. Foot's in the door, Jay's ready. So while I was going to high school and university, I started working as a summer camp counselor. And I got some amazing experiences because I was a camp counselor at this place. And I actually ended up learning about this game called Australia Rules Football. And I played for Team Canada in a tournament in Australia. I only bring it up because it's the 20th anniversary this year in August, and I've been invited back. I'm excited to see how old some of my player friends are, because I was the young guy on the team. Now they have to be a little bit older. Maybe I can catch up and keep up with them. But my camp counselor friends, they did a lot for me. Because I'm a little bit silly and I struggle sometimes with writing and paperwork, they'd actually help me with my paperwork. And it meant that I had to do a little bit extra of the silly stuff. We used to play this game called Kiss the Fish. It always got rigged, so Jay had to kiss the fish. I'm not sure why or how that was fair, but you know what? It ends up being fair because of the things that they had to do, all that extra paperwork. And I appreciate all 3 of them. Actually, it was multiple years. There were so many people who helped me in that situation. And I learned that, hey, it's okay to ask people for help. And everyone's a little bit better at some things. So find the people who are good at it and surround yourselves with. This was an awesome learning experience. And when I was at uni, that's when things actually really started to change for me. They had this student like affairs program where you could go in and you could talk about what you needed help with, and you showed them your paperwork to back up what you were saying, and they'd be like, okay, and they set it up. It was awesome. I got help writing my notes. So instead of hearing what someone was saying and then trying to figure out what to write and how to write it and make sure that it was spelled properly, I could just sit there and listen. And if I heard something that I wanted to write down, instead of trying to write the whole thing, I could just write a couple sentences or a word, and I wasn't falling behind. It honestly, it was the difference for me. This is where I started to realize, and like, more people were willing to help me. And I actually started to get to know some of the people who were actually writing my notes. Some of them actually were my friends. Oh, it was kind of cool. And my study techniques started to change. And I don't know if this is something that helps everybody, but the last thing you do at night is actually what you dream about. Did you know that? So the last thing I would do before I would go to sleep was read over my notes if I had a test coming up. Not just the night before, maybe like a week before, depending on how big. Maybe it might have been like 7 days as opposed to 5 days. And I try to get them nice and concise, and I turn my phone off and I turn it over, and I made sure I was not allowed to go to my phone. And I would just read through my notes, and I would study, and I just focus on it. And then I just put my piece of paper down and I'd shut my eyes. Some people might think that's cheating, but I was studying in my sleep. I told all of my students about this strategy. And to be honest, do I think that it works for everybody? No. But I do think because I was focused while I was reading, it did help me, and I made sure to do it 5 times. Was I really studying in my sleep? Who knows, but it definitely helped. Because most people in university, they gain a freshman 15, which means they put on 15 pounds. Well, my marks went up 10, 15%. So my freshman 15 was a little bit different than everybody else. Man, I was starting to love uni. And I came across and I met this girl, Steph. She's about to get married to this guy, Johnny, an amazing couple. But she was definitely a huge difference for me. I met her one night when I was partying with my buddy, who I went to grade school with. And she was living with him. And we started talking, and she's like, I'll proofread your stuff. And I was like, what? And I was like, oh my goodness. So we made an arrangement that I would send her my stuff and she would proofread it. And I knew that I couldn't add too much extra stress to her. So instead of handing it to her like the night before, I'd hand it to her 2-3 weeks before it was actually due, so she could take her time to mark it or edit it and make sure it was like coherent. And then she'd send it back to me and I would submit it. It was awesome. She helped me so much. And I started to understand, man, maybe this is what I need to do when I'm writing. And it was such an amazing learning experience. I recently actually got to run into her again because she was doing a presentation hosted by RVH. And there was this guy, I don't know if you know him. His name is Eric Lindros. Oh, yeah, he was one of the talkers with my friend Steph. Now she's helping people with brain injuries and concussions, not just helping little old me. But honestly, Steph, thank you so much. You even helped me when I went off to teachers college. I'm so glad that I met you. And I wish you and Johnny the best. Well, I went to teachers college. I got in, not in Canada. And I had the choice between going to the States, the US, or the States, Australia, or Scotland. And I did the math, and at the time it was all about the same cost. Well, I picked Scotland because at the end of my school year, the World Cup was starting in Germany. It was 2006, and I could go backpacking. I'd already been to Australia, and I didn't want to have to drive so much if I went to the States. So Scotland it was. What an amazing year. I played hockey over there. I went skydiving. I was pretty close to the Queen. My hockey team actually won a championship over there. We were actually the best team, not only in Scotland, but in the actual all of UK. Wow, it was a great experience. Oh, and while I was there, I did really well in school because it was 3 big essays. And it was mostly based on, or sorry, yeah, it was 3 essays and mostly based on in-class participation. Psh, I'm great at participating and I get marked on it. It was fantastic. I just played hard and got my teaching degree. Oh. Well, after teachers college, I came back from 6 weeks of backpacking and I had $49 in my bank account. Man, what was I going to do? I started applying. It was August. I got a part-time job and I went back to my old schools and I had 2 supply jobs where I get a day here, a day there. I was getting hours and it was counting towards my certificate so that I could become a full certificate. And then all of a sudden, February, I get a friend of mine that I was supplying with was like, hey, this school needs a teacher, a business teacher, and a full-time supply. And I was like, whoa. And they're in Mississauga, which is actually where I live. And I was like, whoa, that would be awesome. So I applied and I get offered the full-time supply job and full-time business/science at the school I went to JK at. That's when I was 4 and just learning how to talk. That's the school I went to. And there was a little bit of money difference between the full-time supply and full-time business, and I weighed the options. Most of the lessons were planned until March break, and it was February. Their March break was 2 weeks. Oh, exam review would start in May. They were done in June. And there's a little bit of extra money. You know what? I think I can put in the extra little work and fight my way through these couple of months for a little bit of extra money. So I told them that I would take it. It was a great experience. And the year ended and I ended up going to Australia. I was playing hockey in Australia on this awesome experience with the Canadian Moose, and we were educating people about hockey and just having fun. And my year had just been done of teaching. I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. And I started talking to people. And on our trip, we actually had a layover in New Zealand. We had turned it into this awesome adventure where we were going to spend 10 days. And while I was there, I started talking to this hockey team in Brisbane, the Brisbane Blue Tongues, about potentially playing hockey professionally there. Oh, that'd be a dream, playing pro hockey. And all of a sudden I got an email. I got an offer to teach full-time for the year. Ooh, my dream from being a little kid to my dream of when I was like a teenager and being a teacher. Well, the Blue Tongue deal seemed a little bit up in the air and I didn't really know what to do. And the business, it seemed pretty sure. And I was promised gym in the future. That was my real dream job, being a gym teacher. Oh, so I made the hard decision and I decided to be a teacher. I took that job and it was awesome. But business is not gym. I struggled some days with business, but I learned a lot. And by the end, I wasn't just teaching grade 9 business. I ended up teaching some grade 12 courses. But I learned to use PowerPoint because it would also spell check. And I didn't have to be close to the board on the chalk trying to spell stuff. And oh, those were the things that were really tough. I actually got frustrated in the system that they had there. And I just bit the bullet and I bought myself a projector. It made things so much easier. And I made sure to proofread. And if it was a test, I'd always send it to another teacher. I had an amazing support cast of teachers around me. I honestly, I really appreciate them so much. And I'm still friends with them, even though I don't teach at the same school. I recently actually went in and saw them. Oh, and I started getting a little bit of gym and health in the following year. And then I was getting more health. And well, health isn't gym. Although I enjoyed the conversations and the education I was able to impart on the, it just wasn't what I wanted. I got some cool experience. I got to go to Wee Day or meet a Wee Day. I got to coach some rugby. Actually, one of the students in the gray shirt, he actually now plays pro rugby. And I was the person who sort of taught him how to play. Oh, I got to go to a game and see him. It was an amazing experience. And while teaching, I got to go on some out of town trips. I got to go to Ecuador and I built a school. We went to the Andes Mountains and into the cloud forest. It was awesome. And I got this really cool experience where I got to go to Stonehenge, but not just Stonehenge, right? Most people only get to go outside Stonehenge. I got to go inside because we had some special tickets. Oh, that was cool. But that wasn't even the highlight of the trip. The highlight of my trip was actually going to Oxford University. And it was getting to go to the debate society where I met this man, this old man. And I was telling him this story about I was looking for my uncle. And I was like, oh man, my uncle used to go here. He was the president. And he brought Malcolm X to the school. And this guy was like, oh my goodness, Malcolm X. I remember that day. This guy got so excited. He's like, man, that was one of like my first days on the job, blah, blah, blah. This guy was old, let me tell you. But the way that he got excited about the fact that my uncle was that guy, Anthony Abrams, who brought Malcolm X to the school for that debate, he got so excited, he took me on this special tour around the school. It was awesome. He didn't take me into the rooms that I wasn't allowed to, but he definitely gave me a little bit of background knowledge. It was just so cool to see how my uncle had an effect on the world. Man, that was cool. One day I hope I have an effect on the world. Who knows? There's still a chance. But back to teaching. And honestly, I love teaching. But with all this teaching of health, I started to think, man, it's weird that my prizes are always candy. Again, I'm not saying you can't eat candy, but maybe I need to give them an option. And I was like, well, I take some cool pictures, and some of the kids had seen me giving the other teachers photos, and they're like, well, can we get those? And I checked with this office and they gave me permission. And the kids started playing games, not for candy, but they were like, as I was walking, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to get a photo this time. I was like, whoa. Kids want photos over candy? That's weird. Kids want a photo over candy? And that's where I started thinking. I started dreaming of a job with less spelling. Man, I'd take some decent photos. I started chasing these opportunities that could make wildlife photography happen. I sold my house in Mississauga and I taught in Barrie, then Collingwood, and I moved to Wasaga Beach. It was a phenomenal experience. Whoa. I don't know what just happened. And I gave up teaching and it was awesome, but I was starting to I made way less money, but I do some random jobs. So the random jobs that I would actually do were anything. Sometimes I bartend, garden, construction, anything. It was awesome. I even got a job selling beer at Blue Jay games. Yes, the Toronto Blue Jays, when they were in the playoff run in 2014, 2015, I was there selling beer. It was an amazing experience. I got paid to watch sport. I'd set up my section so I could be in an awesome section that I could watch more sports than sell beer. It was an amazing opportunity. Again, I know that it wasn't the way everyone else thought about it, but it's the way I thought about it. And then I got my first photography opportunity. There was this store called Camp Hill. It's actually a whole community of people that help special needs people support themselves, and a little portion of the profits go to help them. I was totally down for it, and I started selling some prints. And this is where things started to grow. I started to push myself and reach out and try to do what I could. And that opportunity turned into some others, and I started to do some presentations in the libraries around here, even in school groups. I actually got the opportunity to talk in my parents' home country. My mom's from Kingston, Jamaica. My dad's from Brownstown. Oh, yep. I got to do a talk in Kingston. I actually did 2 talks in Kingston, Jamaica. Oh, and now I'm doing a talk in the USA. That's amazing. Things are starting to happen. Well, my next opportunity was a gallery, and this one was actually fairly recent. I got to host a gallery in 2021, just as we were kind of coming out of this COVID. And I was once told that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I'm not the best with my words, but I do have some pretty awesome pictures. So I had this idea, black and white wildlife. I'm going to try to change people's perceptions of wildlife, and maybe they see the beauty in black and white. Do you want to? I'm going to show you a couple of the pictures. Let's go. And maybe you will also see how well black and white goes together. So here's me sitting with a fox. We'll come back to this fox in a little bit. But humpback whales, they're kind of black and white, and they work together and they bubble feed. One person gives up their feeding time, they create this bubble wall, and the rest of them come up and eat. Man, the largest animals are working together for the success of each other. Maybe we can take some advice from these guys. How about we jump into the water? Have you ever swam with a spotted eagle ray? Now you can say you kind of have. Look at how this thing just flies through the air. It's absolutely stunning to watch this beautiful creature. And make sure you watch out for that horn too. Well, just how that thing flew through the air. This is an animal that most people will refer to as the American bald eagle. This is actually a North American bald eagle. We have them in Canada. I know. Some of you might not have even realized that. Well, here is a nest around the corner from me in Wasaga Beach or Wasaga Beach, depending on how you say it. Oh wait, you can't really see it well there. So I'm now going to circle it. That's a nest. Every year, an eagle will actually use the same nest. Sure, can use the same nest, depending on food sources. They'll actually potentially have multiple in their territory. Here is an interesting fact that many people might not know about a bald eagle. It doesn't have a white head a full white head until its 5th year. This bald eagle is actually sitting with a juvenile, probably from its own nest. And if you look very closely, you can actually see that the eyes have a 3rd eyelid that's actually closed, and it's making their eyes not actually be so clear. And I know you're like, Jay, I don't understand what you're saying. But just take a look at their eyes. Now look at this next picture. You can see how clear their eyes are. Ooh, bald eagles are absolutely beautiful. And they're not the only animal that has this eyelid. Lots of birds or animals that will splash into water or fly or move through trees will have some kind of protective eyelid. Did you know that? Well, here's a question for you. What do you know about penguins? What color are they? Where do they live? What do they eat? Think about it. Black and white. I saw them in the movie Ice Age, was it? Or March of Penguins? Yeah. So they live in the snow and they eat fish. Well, for those of you who think that they live in the snow, here's a cool picture. These are the South African penguins. That's right, TV lies to you. Well, actually, if you had watched Madagascar, you'd actually know that there are penguins that don't live in snow. But most of the time when we think of penguins, we actually think of penguins in snow, but they live in these warm places. These ones are South Africa. I've also swam with them in the Galapagos Islands. Oh, can't wait to see penguins again. Hopefully one day. Well, this experience was really cool.
So playing to the penguins in South Africa, a song he learned in India.
And this is a Canadian bird. I think maybe in some spots in the USA you might have this. This is a loon. It's actually a family of loon. It's showing the importance of family time. It's also the animal that we have on the golden coin, which we call a loonie. This next joke probably doesn't make sense to most of you if you don't know what a toonie is, but I call this picture a toonie because it's two loons. Toonie is the $2 coin that we have. I know it's not that funny, but I was a teacher, so not all my jokes are meant to be funny. The one owl that we didn't talk about is the snowy owl. And this is actually the picture that made me decide to give up. I was sitting in class and we were talking goal setting. I was 3. I told them that by the end of the year, I'd see an owl. I hadn't seen one in 33 years. 3 weeks later, I take this picture. I decided it was time to do something else. I love snowy owls. I can sometimes go from I went from seeing 0 in my entire life, 2016, see my first one. I've now seen over 624. It's amazing. Yeah, I've even seen 14 in a day. Wow. Did you know that you could see that many snowy owls in Canada? I didn't. I actually even watched this one walk across the ground. I don't know what makes a snowy owl walk across the ground. As a kid, I worried about why did the chicken cross the road? I want to know why did the owl cross the road? And I would have figured it out except for this silly, stupid red truck drove by. I'm not upset or angry. He spooked it and I never found out why the owl crossed the road. Well, earlier I had shown you a picture and I said that it was a fox. So here's a different angle of that fox. It is a red fox. Yeah, that thing by the rainbow. Do you see it? Hold on. This is a photo that someone took of me. His name is Chris Rex. Thank you for this photo. Most of the time when you ask someone for a photo, they tend to miss it. This one was even better than I could have expected. But let's zoom in on the photo. Yeah, this is the photo that I'm taking. Yeah, that's a red fox. Huh. When I said red fox, that's probably not what you were thinking. But this is actually a melanistic red fox. Yeah, that's pretty cool. A melanistic red fox. So it's kind of like the albino gene, right? It's a recessive gene. And instead of having a loss of color, it has a saturation of color. So you can actually kind of see some orange hairs depending on the way the light hits. But the predominant hair is black on this one. You can actually see some that are very different. They're really cool to see. Oh, look at that. Its tongue's out. I've only saw this fox twice and I got a picture with its tongue out. Maybe my friends are onto something. Well, this wildlife photography dream, it's going. And to be honest, it's not all photos of animals. People think it's just fun and games. Well, it's actually a lot of work. Here, look at this awesome bookcase. It's actually my favorite bookcase. I don't like the bookcase because it holds my books. I like it because it's a door. And honestly, I do, with me struggling to read, I do know that having a bookcase is important. I actually built a library for my community. It's amazing how much use it gets. Every time I drive by, there's different books in it. I'm so glad that my community appreciates it. Well, here's the cool, or maybe the crazy part about it, is not only do I have I built a library, I actually write a article for a newspaper. Huh. I'm dyslexic and I'm writing an article for a newspaper every edition. That's pretty cool. It's called Wildlife in and Around the Bay. It's in the Beach Booster newspaper. It's only a local newspaper, but it's pretty cool being published. And it's actually helped me meet some people in Wasaga. Well, what's actually crazy is I'm not only in a magazine or in a newspaper, I'm actually in a magazine. Yeah, that article, I actually wrote an article about the sandhill crane for them, and I write an article almost every edition for them. That's cool. And it actually gets even cooler than that. I have a published article in a magazine called Our Canada. You can actually go on Reader's Digest and you can type in my name, Jason George, and you'll actually see this article because Reader's Digest liked it so much that they ran their version of it. Yeah, that's pretty cool. A dyslexic guy who struggled to talk has an article in Reader's Digest. Wait, what am I holding in that picture? Yeah, I see the magazine, but what's in my other hand? Oh, yeah, that is a narwhal tusk. Unfortunately, it's not mine. It's my buddy Jimmy's. Jimmy brought it over one day because he wanted to talk to me. He had this really cool idea. He actually thinks that we should write a book together. And we're well on our way. It hopefully comes out in the next couple of months. And it'll be all about the animals of the world. We're going to start with Canada, and then we're just going to travel around the world. I think it'll be awesome. And wow, kind of cool that I'm writing a book. I also do some other fun and silly things. This one time currently I'm actually building this Damascus. I'm actually building a walking stick with a Damascus knife that's actually hidden inside of it so that I can be protected while I'm out in the bush or need to make some food or cut a tree down. Oh, this thing's going to actually save me. This is just a little offcut. You want to learn more about it? You can watch the whole video. I actually am forging my Damascus knife and all of that and learning how to turn and like machine the knife and all of that. It's an amazing experience and I hope you enjoy it. We're coming to the end. Don't worry. I hope I haven't lost you. Here's that last part, the safari hunt. So the way the game goes, you get a point if you can figure out what the animal is. And sorry, you get a point if you can find the animal. You get a second point if you know what the animal is. So let's try this first one. Oh, there are multiple in this one. Good job. This is a Highland cow or a Highland coo or the Scottish cow or the hairy cow. They have a bunch of names. They're pretty cool animals. What about this one? If you're from Canada, you've held it in your hand. If you believe in Santa Claus, they sometimes call this a reindeer, but its actual name is a caribou. Okay, let's try one that more of us have probably seen before. Do we see it in this one? Oh dear, I don't see it. Oh, wait a second. There it is. It's a white-tailed deer, male or female. You see the antlers? Yeah, the antlers, it's a male. Good job. What about this one? Wait, is there something? I don't see anything. Wait, did I put the wrong picture in? I just see a bunch of pebbles. Oh, wait a second. These are piping plovers. Their camouflage when they're 3 days old is to look like pebbles. Yeah, look closely. Inside that circle, there's 3 of them. Here, I'll show you mom again. And if you look at her feet and her tail, and just where her beak would go down, you can actually see all 3 of them in comparison. What amazing hiders these ones are. What about this one? Do you see it? Yeah, we jumped over Africa. Oh, you do see it. Awesome. You saw the Thompson gazelles. Well, do you actually see the other animal? The one that's hunting them? That's right. There's a cheetah over here. What? I would never let a cheetah get that close to me unless their camouflage was really good and they were stealthy. Oh, here's a red fox. This is probably the red fox kind of thing that you were looking for in the last one, right? This one's easy. Wait, look at its nose. Do you see the animal jumping? Yeah, right there. It's a vole or a mouse of some kind. I'm not really sure, but it's a pretty cool picture. The largest land animal. Do you see it? Hold on. This is, again, the difference between the naked eye or a cell phone and my camera. That's what it actually looks like. So let's now go back to that first picture. There it is. Do you see it? It's somewhere there. Oh, there it is. Yep. Wildlife photography is really tough. Again, think about those plovers and how small they were. Well, let's focus on some owls. Do you see this owl? This one I call the kid because it thinks because it can't see me, I can't see it. Look right there. Yep, it's an eastern screech owl. Well, the easiest way to actually find an owl is to find a snowy owl, I think. And yep, look closely. Easiest place to find a snowy owl is on a light post. There we go. That is the spot. And it's a great spot to see one because you can actually get really close to it. But can you find it in this picture? No. Wait, oh, you think it's there? No. Come on, I wouldn't make it that easy. It can't be on the post. I just showed you one on the post. I led you that way. I've got to zig the other way. Oh, there it is. You got it. Right on the ground. Oh. It's amazing their camouflage. Do you see the animal in this one? Yeah. Hey, that wasn't nice. That's not an animal. That's me when I have hair. I cut my hair off when we raised that money for Chloe. Yeah. That's me. But do you see the animal we're actually looking at? Yeah, right there. That little dot. Wait, that's a dot? No, that's a bald eagle. Let's zoom in on it. What? Now, hopefully you start to understand how difficult it is being a wildlife photographer or even a birder. Right? You need to not only find that bird, you got to be able to see it, confirm what it is, and look at how well these things hide. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed the presentation. We're now into like the question and answer portion. Hopefully you've maybe learned something or had fun. Maybe I showed you your favorite animal or your favorite bird. Please feel free to drop all kinds of questions and I'll do my best to answer them. And I will actually share a little bunch of links so that you can find some of the videos that I was talking to in this chat, and maybe someone can forward it off to other, like to the other chats or whatever to make it feasible. But yeah, I'm done talking. I don't think you want to hear me for a little bit, so you can now ask some questions if you'd like.
No, this has been very fun. The crowd, I'm sure, is loving it at home. We are going everywhere in an hour, speed running the world.
Yeah.
We do have three questions now in the chat real quick. So if we can address those very briefly, just because we're running a little short on time.
Okay.
First one that came in, do you have any suggestions for neurotypical birders or would-be nature-related mentors for helping welcome and include dyslexic folks into the field?
I would say that having like pictures of stuff as opposed to like having lots of writing is helpful, and like being willing to like show what to do as opposed to just like read it. Like a lot of stuff is like read this, and like when you grab your like a manual. Most of it's about reading something and then transferring. So I think verbal, like having verbal stuff would be very helpful.
Okay, so second question, 17-year-old son from this poster has dysgraphia. Do you have any tips for her as a parent as her son finishes high school next year? And how might she best be able to help and support him in the future?
I think it's just about let your child figure out what they love. I'm sure my parents, when I was when I was a kid, they wanted me to be a computer engineer, and then I told them I wanted to be a teacher. And I'm sure when I told them I didn't want to be a teacher anymore and I wanted to be a wildlife photographer, they stressed, but they still supported me, and now they're getting on board. So if you work at something, it'll happen. Like, I've started this cool YouTube channel, and like things are happening with it, and like there's all these like little things that just try to support your child in whatever they believe and want, and you'll end up making them happy and you happy.
Yes, support systems are very key to everything that we seek to venture into. And last question, little fun one. What is your scariest animal experience in 60 seconds?
I walked behind a moose, which you should never do, and it turned and it started like snorting out of its nose, like steam and whatever, and I backed up, and yeah, it was kind of scary, but it ended up sitting down and letting me actually take some pictures, and after it calmed down. But I kept the animals like away from me with this tree to protect me, and like it was my fault, but nothing bad happened. We had a little talk and it let me go, and I let it go, and I got to take pictures after the moment. And yeah, it was a great experience, and I learned a lot, and now I share with people not to walk behind a moose or horses. And it was just a stupid mistake by my part. That would be the scariest thing I can think of.
Yeah, it's always the big herbivores that you have to look out for, and no one ever tells you that.
Yeah, right. Like we had hippos grazing around our campsite when we were in Africa, and like they're very dangerous. Like there's a lot more danger to animals than we realize. You got to pay attention and read their mannerisms.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we have to cut this a little quickly, but thank you for your presentation. Thank you for joining us and talking, sharing your stories. I'm sure there is multiple, so please do, if you are interested in learning more, check out Jason George's YouTube channel and all of his other socials. Big thanks again to the Parrot Academy and National Audubon Society for sponsoring this event in particular. And we hope you have a great rest of your evening. And please tune in for the rest of Black Birders Week 2022 as we continue to soar to greater heights.